One winter night around midnight, I was sitting in my living room, messing around on my laptop. I wasn't drinking or using any kind of drugs. I got thirsty. As I was heading to the kitchen to get some water, all of a sudden, I heard a loud crashing sound coming from one specific spot on my roof. The sound was so powerful that the whole house physically shook, like a huge thud. I could actually feel the force of it. The glass of water on the counter toppled over, and even my laptop shook. It sounded like something enormous had landed on the roof. Right after that sound, I started hearing heavy footsteps on the roof, like a 300-pound man was running up there. I'm absolutely sure they were human footsteps. I know what animals sound like on a roof. But this was completely different. I could literally sense the movement as whoever it was ran from the front to the back of the house. At that moment, the first thought that crossed my mind was burglar. Or maybe some lunatic jumping from roof to roof, trying to break into my home. I genuinely thought I was in danger. In a mix of panic and courage, I decided to find out what it was. I grabbed a big Maglite flashlight, which could double as a club if needed, and an old military battle shield for protection. Don't judge. It was all I had. Then I ran outside yelling, "Hey! Get off my roof," hoping to scare off whatever it was. Since it was winter, my roof was covered in snow. From my driveway, I had a completely clear view of the entire roof line. I expected to see someone, footprints, or at least a mark where something had hit the roof. But there was nothing. Just perfectly untouched snow. No tracks, no dents, nothing at all. After what had just happened, that was impossible. And that's when the chills really hit me. What could possibly shake my house and run across my roof without leaving any trace? Not even in the snow? Then I started shouting out loud in fear, "What the hell? What was that? What the hell was that?" And to make things worse, at that exact moment, one of my neighbors drove by. There I was, standing in the snow, at midnight, wearing nothing but boxers, holding a battle shield in the one hand and a giant Maglite flashlight in the other, shining it on my roof and yelling at absolutely nothing. My neighbor slowed down, gave me this look like, "Is this guy mentally okay?" And then slowly drove on toward their garage. Do I blame my neighbor? Of course not. After all, it's completely normal for someone to be standing outside in the middle of the night, in the dead of winter, half naked, waving a flashlight and a shield, and yelling at something invisible. Alright? I'm still amazed my neighbor didn't call the authorities for a wellness check. To this day, I still have no explanation for what shook my house and walked on my roof without leaving a single trace. And every time I think about that night, it still genuinely freaks me out. Unusual events were nothing new to us. They were practically a part of our lives. But there was one moment, just once, that truly terrified me. Something I'll never forget. It happened a few years ago. We had gathered at my mother's house for a holiday dinner. Because of the strange, unexplainable things that often happened there, we used to call it the Enchanted House. Night had fallen, and everyone had gone off to their rooms. Only my mother and I remained in the old dining room. A few candles burned softly on the table. Under that warm glow, we sat side by side, talking quietly. As our conversation grew deeper, my mother gently placed her hand over mine. That was the moment everything changed. What happened next is almost impossible to describe. Right before my eyes, my mother's hand began to age. Her skin wrinkled, her fingers thinned, her hand seemed to shrink, as if another person's hand had somehow taken its place. I looked up at her face in shock and saw the same thing happening there. My mother's face was transforming into that of an old woman. Startled, I pulled my hand away without thinking. She asked what was wrong, and I told her everything I had seen. Calmly, she said, "Maybe someone is trying to show you something. Let's sit the same way again. This time, look carefully. Maybe you'll understand what they're trying to tell you." So we did, and I began to describe the face I had seen. It was completely different from my mother's. Short, dark hair, a round chin, the features of an elderly woman. Nothing like my mother's long, tied-back hair. Yet the vision lasted for about 5 minutes. At first, the sight had frightened me deeply, but slowly, the fear faded and turned into something else, a strange, peaceful warmth. It felt as if that woman wasn't there to harm me, but to protect me. After a while, my mother took a deep breath and said, "I've seen that same face before, in the mirror one night, just like this. It appeared over mine, under the same kind of light. Ever since then, I believed it's a guardian spirit, maybe a guide, or the soul of someone who once lived in this house. She's always here with us, just unseen." Years later, I was watching a show called My Ghost Story or Ghostly Encounters and saw something eerily similar. A family claimed that during a holiday gathering, they began to see unfamiliar faces, masks, appearing over each other's faces. It was almost exactly the same thing. Later still, while reading Journey of Souls or Destiny of Souls, I found another reference. It said that guides sometimes use masking as a spiritual teaching tool. That night was the only time it ever happened. It never occurred again. But even now, whenever I think about it, it still feels like a deep, beautiful mystery. Something that defies explanation. And sometimes, when I remember it, I can't help but wonder, who else might have experienced the same thing, or something like it? One day after school, I came home just like any other day. Back then, I was in 7th grade. I usually got home around 4 p.m. and stayed alone until my mom came back. My dad was working out of town, and my mom would usually get home around 10 at night. My little sister was usually taken care of by my uncle's girlfriend. My uncle also lived with us, but he usually came home around 8 p.m. after picking my sister up. I remember getting home, grabbing something to eat, and then heading to my room to play on my PS4. Just as I was about to put on my headphones, I heard the front door open. A moment later, I heard the distinct sound of high heels clicking on the floor. At first, I didn't think much of it. Now, my uncle's girlfriend often wore heels, so I assumed she had come by to drop off my sister or pick something up from my uncle's room. But the sound didn't stop. It kept going, step by step, closer and closer, until it reached right outside my door. When I opened it, there was no one there. I immediately called my uncle. "Hey, did your girlfriend come by just now?" I asked. He sounded surprised and said firmly, "No. If anything looks out of place, call the police right away." I searched the entire house, every corner, every room, but nothing was out of order. Even the door was still locked, exactly how I had left it when I came home. A few years later, I met my new neighbor at school. We started talking, and he told me about some strange, creepy things happening in his house. I decided to tell him my story. As I finished, his eyes went wide. He said, "That's happened to me too, more than once." A few weeks later, he came over and told me that his dad had talked to the landlord about all the strange activity. The landlord told them that the land where our houses now stand used to be a horse farm. And specifically, the area where our homes were built was where injured or old horses were put down. Ever since then, I can't stop thinking about it. Sometimes, late at night, I hear faint trotting sounds outside my window, and once in a while, even the neigh of a horse. To this day, I still can't wear both of my headphones when I'm home alone, because I'm afraid I'll hear those paranormal sounds again.